Rants. Life and motherhood uncensored.
Welcome back to Mama Rants with Ell
and Ali.
And we are joined once again by Mel from our mini episode 1. Welcome, Mel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back with us. Now, we do want to give a little warning for the listeners today. This episode will heavily deal with loss of a child. So please, if this is a trigger for you, turn this off and come join us next week for a more upbeat ranting session. Mel, how's your week been? Trucking along?
Yeah, just plugging and trucking.
How have you been, Ali?
Definitely doing the same thing over here. Just making it to the next day. What about you?
I got a sick baby at home.
No.
A sick baby, and
say no
my
more.
little poor tyke is trucking along and trying to be in good spirits, but it's like 2 seconds flat and he's poltergeist. So one of the topics that people don't like to talk about a lot is loss, because for me, as someone that has never had a miscarriage or lost a child, I never know what to say. And I know that you two have experienced this tragedy, and Ali thought, there are so many people that don't know what to say. So why don't we help them out with this tough topic?
Definitely. And I think what was important for me was just talking about it. You're grieving yourself and you're feeling all types of emotions. And then you have your friends and your family around you who may not know how to respond or never experience that, thankfully, but may not know what to say or how to say it or how to be there without sounding or sounding bad or sounding like they, are uneducated or just, they want so badly to be there, but are just so unsure.
Yes, you want to be supportive, but you also don't want to be the person that throws you into a black hole. And I feel like there's not a lot of education out there for people to help those that have experienced this.
I also feel like it's not talked about because everyone wants to hide their pregnancy until, week 12, first trimester, you're out of the clear. Doesn't necessarily mean you're out of the clear, but it's, why aren't we telling people? It's almost like you have to keep this secret. And then if it happens, if you have a miscarriage, people don't talk about it. And so you feel completely alone.
I was the opposite. I'm not sure why, but my in-laws and my mom found out that I was pregnant literally the day I found out. And I told my best friends within about a week because I knew that my chances for miscarriage were extremely high. And I wanted people around me in case it happened. So I just kind of involved as many people as I could. And, I was really anxious during that time because I was going to a lot of appointments. They had me going to appointments once and twice a week for the first trimester.
Mm-hmm. It's life-changing.
So I was a little bit of an opposite. So, Mel, why don't you take us through your experience, and then Ali can round us out, and then we'll talk about what's beneficial and what isn't when people are trying to comfort you and be there.
Mm-hmm. So our journey started pretty much right after we got married. We got pregnant probably a month later. And I had all of the, had the positive pregnancy test. I was still going through nursing school, freaking out. I didn't even have a job, but we were so excited. I mean, this was always the plan to start a family right away because we'd been together for so long prior. Being a mom is something that I've always wanted to be, just hands down. If I could be anything in life, I was going to be a mom. So, got pregnant, and then COVID hit. So COVID hit, and I stayed home most of the day, sleeping on the couch, extremely tired, nauseated, crying, emotion just everywhere. I cried at Toy Story. I bawled at Toy Story 4 and, all the pregnancy symptoms. Went for my first appointment. We were super excited. They actually didn't do an ultrasound during my first appointment, but I ended up changing OBs to someone else that was at a better hospital that I liked. So went to a different OB and he did a first ultrasound and he said, I don't see a heartbeat. This could be a miscarriage or, what, going on and on about a miscarriage. And I'm like, what? I've never heard of this, and he's just blabbing this all out. And I just don't even know how to process it. So I found myself on Google after the appointment, just shocked and reading on Google because it wasn't explained to me that you can have a miscarriage even while technically be pregnant. Yeah. So
That is a failure of the physician.
He was awful. So I had to go back a week later. The most heart-wrenching week, just the wait period. Had to go back a week later, still no cardiac activity, and they're talking to me about, trying to figure out how to get rid of this fetus that's inside of me. And I'm not ready. I feel pregnant. I'm still pregnant. I literally walked into that doctor's office and they were like, oh, your pregnancy test is positive. And I'm like, okay, I'm literally here for miscarriage, but thank you for letting me know. So it was horrible. I mean, there's no good way to have a miscarriage, but to still have none of the symptoms and being told that you're having a miscarriage was something that I couldn't process. It was hard to process. So went back another week later, and at this point they were, they did a final ultrasound, and every single time the last two times I found out or had the ultrasounds, I cried each time. And I remember sitting there with the doctor just asking her about like the chances of there becoming a heartbeat. And she's like, if you're asking me if I'm religious, yes, I'm religious. But I believe in miracles, but like I am also medicine. So I'm here to tell you that, if you wait any longer, you can go septic if we don't get this baby out. So they gave me an option of taking a pill and aborting the pregnancy or having surgery, a DNC. And that's what I opted for. So went in the next day for a DNC at the hospital alone. My husband dropped me off at the door because of COVID.
Oh, no.
Yes. So COVID, he wasn't allowed to go in with me, dropped me off at the door, picked me up at the door after it was done. And in the hospital, I remember nobody acknowledged that what I was there for. Nobody. The only person that ever acknowledged me was the anesthesiologist, and he looked at me and just said, I'm sorry, because me and my wife just went through something like this, and I know how hard it is. And I just started bawling. Like, it was just, no one wanted to talk to me. No, not even like, I'm sorry. Just a little comforting. I'm alone, and I'm here because I'm having a miscarriage.
Something, yeah.
Speak to me like I'm a human. So had that miscarriage. We tried again for, another 7 months. And then in July, I got a positive pregnancy test. And then the next day I ended up bleeding. But they said it was most likely a chemical pregnancy. So then I had another miscarriage. It's really confusing though, because you're like, I have a positive pregnancy test. Why am I bleeding? And then I took one again and it was negative. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe it was like a false positive. So then I went to a fertility specialist after that. And I went through all of the tests, for months on end. It was horrible, just ultrasounds and endometrial biopsies, and they would do a saline sono where they inject saline into your uterus and then snap a picture, and none of these things were comfortable. And then you're just like, I'm hoping that there's an answer. Blood work, my husband had to get tested and everything. So ended up finding that I had a uterine septum, which is a piece of cartilage that comes down in the middle of your uterus, so it makes your uterus heart-shaped. So they're thinking that if something were to implant into my uterus, it's implanting to that septum where there's no nutrition for the fetus to grow. So then it just turns into a miscarriage. And people with septums are at higher risk for preterm labor because then the baby grows and there's not, a lot of place for it to grow because of the septum. So either way, I pretty much had to get it removed. But in the case that we got pregnant again and I had a miracle baby and I didn't have surgery, that would be amazing. So we stopped. We prevented pregnancy for an entire month before my procedure. It was the month prior I had my period, and I don't know if I should go this far into detail, but we accidentally got pregnant the month before my surgery. Not even during an ovulation window. It was after my period, like the day after my period. So it was bizarre. I don't know why I wanted to take a pregnancy test, but it was the day before my surgery. And I was like, I just want to take one. I know we have, there's no possible way, but, for whatever reason, and God just blesses us, I'm just going to take one just to know that I'm not pregnant. Sure enough, it was positive. And I was shaking. I was so excited. I was like, I don't have to have surgery. This is another chance for us. I was excited. My husband was the complete opposite. He was very nervous. He's like, you didn't have the surgery. And so he was riding on the line of caution the entire time. So I called and canceled my surgery. And I went to the fertility specialist. They drew my blood work. And then I got my results. They called the next day and said that my HCG levels were very low. So we need to repeat it to see if they're going in the right direction. So had the blood work retested. Felt like days for this blood work to come back, but it was literally just that night. I woke up in the morning and the results had loaded. And I looked at results and the HCG number was lower. So right then and there, I knew that I was miscarrying. So at this point, I did not tell anyone because from my previous experiences, it was very, it was very not awkward, but awkward's not the right word, but it was hard for people to find the right words to comfort someone. And I remember someone saying to me once that we should wait until the first trimester is over. So I felt that, okay, well, that's probably what I should do.
Why do you feel like they said that?
Because I don't know why. And I will never understand why people say to wait till the first trimester to tell anyone. Like, I get like social media and you don't want to have to tell everyone about your miscarriage after you've just announced it. I get that part of it, but telling your family is different. So I don't know why I took this advice, because I called my dad that morning that I found out, bawling my eyes out. I told him to come over right away, and he did. And I told him I was having a miscarriage. He didn't even know I was pregnant. So I called him over just to tell him this bad news, where me and my husband celebrated a couple days earlier and were super excited and had all the joyful emotions. So I didn't get to experience that with my dad. It was just, they're going to be there anyways. Your family is going to be the one that you're going to go to lean on for support anyways. So why does it matter if they know? Because they're going to know if you have a miscarriage, because what, are you supposed to go through this alone?
That's a great point.
I mean, is that what society wants you to think?
And why is that? Just to push uncomfortableness for other people away, because it's not going to change how you feel.
Probably. And it's not looking for pity. I don't want anyone's pity. I just want, and it was really hard. Like during the first one, I felt alone. I felt that this was, like, I don't know how to explain it. I felt alone in that, like, everyone else was pregnant. Everyone else is having babies, and I just lost mine, and then I can't get pregnant. And so I felt like I was the only one going through this. But, 1 in 4 people have a miscarriage. So then I had the miscarriage for the third miscarriage. I knew I hadn't started bleeding yet, but I knew it was coming. But I was actually at work when I started bleeding, working a 12-hour shift. And I didn't leave work. I worked right through it just because I didn't want to go home, and it was just like a period. So I don't know if they would consider that a chemical pregnancy too. Probably, like your HCG levels go up, but then just go back down.
Well, it doesn't
The
change
emotion of
the
it.
emotional attachment that you have or the reality that you had a child inside of you growing.
Yeah.
I'll say I always hated the response like, "Oh, you were early, so like it doesn't matter," or like like, "Oh, thank goodness you were early," and I'm like, yes, I was, but at the end of the day, I was pregnant, and I did lose a baby that I was, so, and I was only pregnant for a week when I found out, and I found out what like I had already missed my period. I found out, and I lost it a week later, and that week was so exciting for me. Like I was, it was me and my husband, and we were so excited. And my mom had come up, and we were so excited to tell her I miscarried the day after. But even just in that short time span, you feel like, wow, like my life is changing. Like this is so exciting. And then so quickly it's taken away. And then just that was when, the things flooded in, like, thank you, or that was, at least you were early, or wasn't meant to be, or
Oh, that's the worst one.
and right, or it wasn't the right time, and like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but like it's not helping. It makes me feel like shit. Like I want you to say I love you and I'm so here for you,
I'm sorry. I'm one of these people that didn't know. And most of the time I would just tell my friends, I'm sorry and I love you. And maybe it was the really bad response, but I send food because I'm an emotional eater and food
Right.
makes me
Yeah.
feel better.
Oh, absolutely.
I have in my phone the days that my friends, angel babies had passed on. And sometimes I don't know if I should reach out and just say, normally I reach out and I just say, I'm thinking of you today. And I don't know if that's appropriate or am I hurting them further?
I think it's appropriate because they're probably thinking the same thing that, I remember, I knew my due dates. I was pregnant with my first one for almost 10 weeks. And so for 10 weeks, I'm sitting there planning my life. And every November, this comes around and I think, oh, my baby would be 1. My baby would be 2. So it's like in my head, I have even though that might not be the day that they were actually born on, but like that's a birthday for me. And I think about it.
Ellie, take us through your experience. I know you just touched on it, but is there anything else you want to kind of add for your story? Were you guys trying?
I would say at that time, it was like we weren't preventing it, and we were just like going with the flow, So like if we got pregnant, cool. If we didn't, cool. But I remember it was what was it, a Friday, when Mallory called and told me that they were on their way to tell everybody, and I remember her FaceTiming me and telling me, and I remember sitting the on FaceTime in the living room while she was telling everybody else, and we were so excited, and we're like, wow, like maybe like we are ready to like start a family. And then sure as shit, a week later we found out we were pregnant. And I remember calling Mallory, and I was like, oh my god, like we're pregnant, like, and she was like, oh my god, and I just remember that moment. And it was so cool, and we're like, we're gonna be pregnant together, and it was so exciting. And then it was a week later that I started to bleed, and I remember that day after, I think I just texted Mallory just saying like, hey, like I'm having a miscarriage.
I'm going to pause you right there and just tell you that being pregnant in that moment and someone telling me that they're having a miscarriage, I didn't know what to say. So I have been that person.
Right.
I have been that person. And experience it has given me the wisdom to be there for people. So
Yeah, I will say the same. Yeah, having it happen to me now, I knew what does it happen. Like I said, it happened a week later, but then a few weeks later, it happened to you, and I remember. Yeah, I remember that, and I just remember just like breaking down and just now she knows how I feel, unfortunately, and part of me was like felt kind of selfish because I'm like, now I'm not alone and I have Mallory to go through it with. But then I just remember being so sad, like, how is it possible for two people, in the same family to have this happen to? And I remember like our whole family is like, your fam and your husband's and mine and my husband's and our husbands are cousins. So, that whole fam was grieving, times two. And it was I will say I'm super, thankful that I did have you at that time. And I remember us joking all the time, like, how are these like crackheads out on the street like having babies? And we want babies so bad. And it's just and I just will forever, hold that with me, just having
Mm-hmm.
you there and having that journey of, us
Mm-hmm.
going through that together. And it unfortunately happened to you, a couple more times, and every single time my heart would break, and thankfully it didn't happen to me again. But I just going through it myself, and having you and learning what to say and things not to say, and
It's a journey in
it
itself.
was quite right, it is. And
Not a journey that anyone wants to go through, and I wish
you know
upon anyone else, but
So
right.
let's start with what are the things that you definitely shouldn't say? Why don't we start there? What are some of the other things that you guys have been told that just really hurt or were not helpful that people commonly think are good things to say?
I feel like people commonly think that if this happens one time, oh, then your next one will result in a pregnancy.
100%. And I had someone say that to me, like, oh, like, happened one time and chances are it's gonna happen again. Like, thank you so much, fuck off. Like,
Yeah,
it just
but it doesn't take away the amount of anxiety that you have when you find out you're pregnant, because now you're on your toes, you're walking on complete eggshells, and it's almost like you're not even
right.
excited at this point, you're just
Yep.
terrified. So it sucks out the joy of the entire pregnancy, and the fear of possibly still losing the baby up until the day you birth
Right.
it.
Yeah, and it was meant to be. There was, and then you got a lot of like, oh, like, well, what happened? Like, I'm sorry. Like, do you want to call him? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
know. I couldn't tell you.
That kind of shocks me because I feel sitting on the outside, if I heard that, they think like, oh, what'd you do? Like slip and fall or something? Like that's not how the majority of most miscarriages happen.
Right. Yeah. It kind of it makes you feel like, well, shit, like, what did I do? When damn well it has nothing to do with you, but like, or something you did, or something you ate, or something, like you said, you fell or something. And it just kind of makes you feel like, well, fuck, like, what
Mm-hmm.
did I do? Like, what could I
Yeah.
have done differently?
Absolutely.
And that's not even the case at all. And I just wanted more so the outreach of, I love you, I'm thinking of you, like, is
Mm-hmm.
there anything you need? I love you for saying that, like, that's what I need right now. And I just I just wanted someone to, just call. And people did, and they definitely did call, check in, and let me know, but let me know I love you. But it was a lot of other people that just didn't know what to say. And it just, what do you when someone just says, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you." Thank you. Like, what do you say back? It kind of puts
Yeah, but some people didn't even say that. And it's just something that, like, it's like unspoken, like it's awkward and they don't know what to say, so they choose not to say anything, and then they just ignore it, and you're like, in pain over here. And just even being acknowledged, I guess.
I agree with that. And for me, and I'm pretty sure same way for you, Mallory, like, it helped us talking about it. It helped others, like, and I'm not saying I want you to like say like questions, but when I bring it up, it's okay to talk about it with me. And even if you brought it up to me later on, but it helps me process, it helps me move forward, it helps me know that, you understand what I'm going through. It helps, just talking about my feelings. And, um, that would say is pretty huge. When someone's venting to you about something like that and something so, like dark, and that can be, so consuming, and just being that listening ear and just saying, you at that time, if you want to say, I'm so sorry for your loss and is there anything I can do for you, versus just putting that I'm so sorry whole on.
So you're kind of saying that you need a little bit more than that. Like the acknowledgement is great, but then give a little more love.
Yeah,
is kind of the way to go.
I wouldn't say like more love. I would just say like don't end it there. Like continue to check on your friends because they're not okay.
Right.
Sorry, that's what I meant by more love.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely more checking in. And I mean, it was a while. I mean, I'm sure it was for you, but a while, like it was until we, got pregnant with and even after I got pregnant with my daughter, that I was so afraid, every day and crying every day and wondering, am I ever going to get a chance to be a mom? All those things happen, all the people around you getting pregnant. You're like, wow, that's never going to happen for me. And, that constant reoccurring like slap in the face on social media or by friends or people who obviously may not have forgotten that it happened to you, but maybe aren't so like sensitive to it happening to you.
There's definitely a lot of like Facebook, everyone's getting pregnant around you, but no one talks about the loss. So I remember I posted on Facebook, this is the first time I ever mentioned anything, but I think it was Pregnancy Loss Awareness Day or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I feel like the world deserves to know, and my baby deserves to know that my baby did exist at one point. So I posted all the pictures, all the happy pictures. And I just wanted to show everyone, the happiest day of our lives was finding out and telling everyone and everyone's reaction and how much love we got. And I just wanted to share that. And I remember mentioning it that, if anyone else is going through this, you are not alone. And I remember, very distinctly, because I will never forget, and this is why I still continue to talk about it, is someone posted on it, thank you for talking about this, because my husband and I have been dealing with infertility for years. And I didn't know that. She's probably watching everyone get pregnant on her Facebook, and infertility is a whole nother ballgame that I don't know about. I mean, at least I knew I could get pregnant.
I'm pretty sure everyone looked at me and my husband and thought, oh, you guys have been together for 16 years. When are you going to finally have a baby? Well, when I can. Or when are you going to get pregnant? Or, oh, don't you want a child? Well, yes, of course I want a child. Not of course. I know other people don't. But for me, I had always wanted a child and talked about it. And, that was always the questions we got was, oh, aren't you going to make us grandparents someday? Or, oh, I hope I'm alive to see our grandchildren. Or, oh, you need to have a baby so our babies can grow up together. Well, yes, I want that too. I want them more than anything. But, it's right now, it's just not happening. And, that I struggled with. We were very blessed because, our parents never pressured us in that aspect. We never felt pressure from our parents or our family, but I know that there was extended family apparently asking questions that our family members had to dodge for us. And it was, people assume just because you don't have a child and you've been together so long that you don't want them, or what are you waiting for? Oh, you better use it before you lose it. Yeah, thanks. That's just great. Like,
well, even if you didn't want them, that shouldn't be, up to them. Even if you didn't want kids, like, so fucking be it. And I hate when people pressure other people to make them feel as though you should have them, even though people out there literally could give a rat's ass if they had a child or not. And that is okay. That's completely fine. But the pressure that people put on other people to do that is so fucking wild.
I feel like especially a female that doesn't want to have a child for whatever their reason is, I feel like they almost feel the most pressure because of society and everyone around them. And that's a whole nother ball game. Now I have the hardest question to ask you guys. we're all in that period where we're having children and you experience a loss and one of your friends or family members gets pregnant. Now, obviously, the person hopefully is conscious about, oh my gosh, I don't want, her to feel terrible or not want to be around me or whatever. But how do you navigate that situation? And what's best for even the person that got pregnant to say?
So I feel really passionate about this because that was very hard for me. I dealt with a lot of, anxiety and depression afterwards, severe depression. And I was seeing a therapist, right before I got pregnant with Luke. So I was seeing a therapist, and she's mentioned something to me about, and I've always said, I'm very happy for other people. I'm very excited for them. I absolutely love that this is happening for them, but I'm just sad for me because I don't know why it's happening to me. But I was told by this therapist that you need to do what's best for you. And if being around someone who's pregnant triggers you, stay away from stay away from triggers. It's not that you don't want to be around, but it's just you're working on yourself, you're working on your mental health, and you're trying to get better. So don't, tear everything down, because even you can put on this show. I remember I was at work and this girl was having a baby, and this was just after I had my second miscarriage, and they're throwing a baby shower for her in the break room. And I bought her a gift. She opened the gift. She was so, everyone is around, just so joyful and everything. And I was just in the back, just, trying to put a smile on, but broken inside. So I had to leave, and I just went back to work. But I'll still be there. I'll get you a gift. It's just, it's almost like you build up this mindset in your mind. It's like, okay, I'm getting better. I'm healing. I'm mentally healing, because mental health is something that, I don't even know how to explain it. It's so beyond me, but I also think it's the most important kind of health. So that it was hard for me because I suffered from, this depression for years, and it wasn't until I broke down and I just was like, I need to feel better. If this isn't going to happen, I can't live my life like this. So that's when I got on medicine and therapy and everything. And
good for you.
But I also started my job at Women's Hospital, and
so then you were around pregnant women all the time. So you almost immersed yourself.
I did. I immersed myself. And I think that it was the best thing I could have done for myself too, because I learned how to physically be happy not that I'm not happy for other people, but I can genuinely feel not sad inside after I see someone, but I genuinely feel happy for someone having a baby. And that was the most grateful feeling ever.
That's wonderful.
I think that's I think it's important for people to understand that everybody grieves differently, and their absence doesn't mean they don't like you, don't want to be around you for personal shit. I think that it takes, time to apply yourself and realize, hey, they're grieving. And and a lot of people,
let's not judge whether they grieve.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't think about the husband, and maybe obviously the husband's grieving right along with the mother, wife. And I think that acknowledgement that they are a unit, they did in fact lose, a child. And, people who may not have gone through that may not understand or realize what that grieving process feels like, even a smidge. It's not personal, and it's for the benefit of that person. And I think that that's huge in being a part of someone's life that has gone through a miscarriage. And I think that with time they'll come around, but in their own time. And like I said, just being a part of their life as much as you can, just letting them know you're there is huge.
I want to circle right back around to where I got my job. So I not only got to be excited and learn how to be internally joyful with my patients about having a baby, even though I wasn't pregnant, even though I was still struggling, but I also learned to become the nurse that I always wanted. That I learned to become the nurse that I wanted to have in the moment where I was having my miscarriage, because then I had patients just like me, who were coming in because they didn't find a heartbeat and it was hard for them to process. The first patient that I ever had was bawling her eyes out, and asking, was it something that I ate? Was it something that I did? And I remember feeling all of those feelings.
Yes,
And
it's hard not to blame yourself.
yeah, absolutely. But the way that the women's hospital that I work at now, the way that the nurse that was precepting me in the moment, the way that she talked to this patient, the way that she, was there for this patient, the words that came out of her mouth to this patient was nothing that I ever received. The sympathy was something that I never got. So I actually stayed behind the curtain. I just listened, but I bawled. It was like a first week on the job, and I had to leave because I could not hold myself together. And I was like, nobody told me that.
And that is so unfortunate.
No,
and
nobody
so
told me that.
lonely and so hard to be broken and be alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And alone and feeling like this isn't happening to everyone else. And I'm able to be that nurse now that looks at someone in the eye and says, you are not alone. This happened to me.
I've been there.
And I'm not, saying I'm not taking away everything that you're going through right now, but just know that you're not alone. From experience, this is very isolating, and I've had a couple dads cry before too.
And we are going to have an episode with the dads come on. It's unfortunate for our male counterparts that, they also go through anxiety and postpartum mental issues and also loss and grieving. And we are going to have our husbands on in a future episode, kind of spilling their guts and having a daddy rant session. I just want to commend you both. It is so brave of you to be so vulnerable. And I thank you both for talking about it, and especially speaking out on behalf of everyone that has had a miscarriage and has needed the right words be said to them. And for you to share that with us today as someone who doesn't know from experience how to do that. And I think all around, it's been very beneficial and very brave. And I thank you both.
I think it's important to talk about. And I think more people should, if they're comfortable, share their stories and should definitely be more talked about for those, so they don't feel like they're suffering, alone. So
I feel like sharing is part of a healing process too.
Absolutely. Definitely for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for sharing your stories of your angel babies with us, and your grief and your process and how you are continuing to move forward. And join us next week for a much more upbeat episode, because we're going to have to shake things up after this serious note.
Absolutely. It's been a damper, but important.
Hey, there's no one else I'd rather sit in a dark hole with than you guys. So if you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And for this week, that's Mama Rants.
Bye.